I am thrilled to be doing this today. This is a series that we have done in the US, and it's one of our most popular series that we do. It's where we give you, the NLS members, access to some of the most important and incredible agents to ever do the job. And it is my absolute honor to have my dear friend, my business partner, and a man that I respect enormously, Mauricio Umansky, to be our inaugural Agent Icon series member. How are you doing?
Mate, I'm doing good, man. It's I'm in Los Angeles right now, and it feels good to be here. As you know, I travel. I spend most of my time, in the air and traveling all over the world. And I've been here now for 4 weeks. I got 2 more weeks in Los Angeles, and then I start traveling again. So I've just been thrilled to have my feet on the same space for a couple of weeks. It's been feeling good, and I'm feeling rested. I'm feeling good and energized.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, I'll the way this is going to work today, guys. I'm going to ask Mo a number of questions that ChatGPT thought I should ask you, Mo.
You should make sure everybody knows. Everybody calls me Mo. You guys call me Mo.
I call
So you know who you're talking to. It is my. But yeah, I am Mo.
That's
Mauricio.
right,
Nice to meet
Mauricio.
you.
We're going to go through a bunch of questions. At the end, guys can raise your hands and or type questions in the chat, and we'll go through a bunch of questions from any of the members that want to do it. For those of you that don't know, Mo is literally one of the most successful agents to ever do this job. Just to give you a bit of background, he has consistently been one of the top agents in the world when he was an agent, and Mo transitioned to building and scaling one of the most significant luxury brokerages anywhere also. So to get his insight, to get his thoughts is a huge treat. And without further ado, let me go into that. So you've done some amazing things, Mo, and I've been lucky enough to watch you do them in terms of both selling houses, building the business. What do you consider as an agent, let's say, because there's on this call, there's going to be agents and also business owners. So I want to try and give a rounded, view on all of those things. But out of all the things that you've done over the years, from selling the Playboy Mansion for 100 million to being the top agent in California, to doing 40 billion in sales, scaling to 154 offices, what are the things that stand out for you that you're most proud of?
Well, I'll tell you, it's such a hard question sometimes, right? Because it's what are you most proud of? And I'm glad. I'm assuming just before that, the business owners we're talking about, whoever's in here is still an agent, right? I mean, they're doing brokerage business, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, because that's super important. And obviously, brokers and they need to understand the salespeople. They need to understand the agents. And I think that that's critical, in order to deliver amazing service to them so that they understand the mentality and the psyche that we all have. But going back to the question that you're asking, I mean, I don't know what I'm most proud of, Chris. I think it's just, in order to achieve the success that I've achieved, you can't be looking back at what you're most proud of. You need to be, have a mentality of always pushing forward and never being enough. And, when you're in sales, I think that one of the things that happens is that, you know, a lot of people, salespeople, they make a deal, they make a little bit of money, they make 50K, they make 100K, whatever it is that they do. And then all of a sudden, they feel like they're ready to have a nice summer. And then they go off and then they go do, they go to the beach, they chill, they have a good time. And then all of a sudden they don't have a pipeline. They don't have anything going on, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get stuck and then you're constantly in this, go no go game, right? Where it's like, oh, I've got a little bit of money, I go to the beach. I have, no money, I go to work. And if that's the lifestyle you want, that works, right? But if you want to be, successful and you actually want to be wealthy and actually crush it in this game, you can never be looking back. You always need to be looking forward. And so, yeah, am I proud of the fact that, I sold the first $100 million estate in Los Angeles, the Playboy Mansion? Yeah, I'm damn proud of that. I'm more proud of the way we got the listing and the mandate, and the way we found the buyer, which was completely planned, completely, it was a fishing expedition. When I call talking about leads and finding leads, I think about it as a fishing expedition, right? So I need to put the best bait out in the world, and then I need to go fish for that client, right? And I can tell you, that when I went for the listing presentation, I gave a 10 names of people that I wanted to go after, and how I was going to achieve them. And I was sitting with Hugh Hefner, and I was sitting with the Playboy, the CEO of Playboy, and all of these people. And they're like, I love it. Let's go for it. Let's put it into effect. And we did. And we ultimately ended up selling the house to one of the names that was on my list of 10 people. And so, that to me is, that's a proper fishing expedition, right? That's a proper mandate that you ultimately, delivered on, right? And obviously, I can go into an entire webinar just on that alone.
We may ask you to do that one of these days.
Really digging into that, and getting super micro on that. But helping agents, man, I think that's the
Yeah.
next thing I've been super proud of. I did achieve the number one salesperson in California, the number three salesperson in the US. The way I achieved that is I sold $653 million worth of real estate in 1 year, worth of homes in 1 year. And alone, without a team, not as a team, not as a brokerage house, but absolutely alone. And that gave me that distinction. But really, what that did is that allowed me to start thinking about what's next. And what was next was to create the agency and to help agents grow. Because the stuff that I was doing that allowed me to have that success, the techniques, the discipline, the courage, everything was teachable and repeatable. It was not unique to me. It was not a fairy dust that I had. That the only reason I was able to do it was because it was mine. It was rather the discipline, and the techniques that I used, that were teachable. And so when we started the agency and we started passing that on, and I started seeing some of our agents, and you were one of those guys, Chris, that went from selling, whatever, $10 million a year to $30 million a year, from selling $30 million a year to $100 million a year, from selling $60 million a year to $250 million a year. That gave me joy more than anything in the world, because then I was watching people succeed, buy houses, buy cars, go on amazing vacations. And that was what I would say gave me the most joy in the world. And now with, this thing that we're doing with the NLS.com, I think this is critical to agent success. And we'll dig into that with some of the future questions that you have on today, in terms of, what does it take to be successful? But yeah, we'll leave it at that. Otherwise, I'm going to
That's
take
amazing.
2 hours and I only got 40 minutes. So
Well, let's go back. I'm going to go back to that $630 million year, because again, I think one of the things that I think the agents in Spain here that we have can maybe glean from this is how to have more agency yourself and how to build a business rather than waiting for leads to come in. Actually, be more proactive about doing it. And I think that's something that a lot of the guys that we have, I think, will can really maybe learn from. And so, what did you do? What was that year like? What was the things that you did differently that the other agents weren't doing?
yeah, let me just hold on a second. Can everybody hear us well? I just saw in the Q&A that somebody said the sound is terrible. And is it just terrible just for that one person, or is it really bad? Do we need to do something? I don't know if there's a way that somebody can just tell us on that. Sounds great. Oliver says sounds great. Okay, let's keep
Okay,
going. Go ahead, my friend. Just repeat that question. I got thrown off. I just wanted to make sure people could hear us. I didn't want to have bad connection there.
I know, all good. I was saying that. What did you do different? What was that $630 million year, which I know at the time was insane. Like those numbers were not even, no one thought you could do those numbers. I know back then. What did you do there? What did you do differently that the other agents weren't doing? That how did you do that basically?
Well, I think that one of the things that we need to understand as agents is that our job, we're matchmakers. That's it. It's that simple. The way I look at everything in my life is simplify it. The more you complicate things, the harder it is to accomplish them. Simplify everything. Find the low-hanging fruit. Simplify your life. Simplify your lead generation. Simplify your database. Simplify everything.
Yeah,
And then you can do it all, right? So what I did, it's the key to matchmaking And I have, obviously it takes years to build the database, right? So it's not like, oh, it was year one and all of a sudden I did $653 million, right? It took me, I did $653 million. What was that? 2011, maybe 2008. And I started in 1996. So, it took me 15 years to get, to those numbers, right? It didn't happen overnight. But what I did is I started to build a database, right, of clients, of buyers through open houses, through lead generation, through the stuff that I'd like to do, whether it's golf, tennis, padel, going to my, my temple, my church, the clubs, the social clubs, all of that stuff, and just constantly being around the people, constantly understanding, and gathering. But the best thing for me, then, in order to meet people that were actually looking for real estate, was doing open houses. I became, I think, what I consider to be the best open house sitter ever. Okay.
Yeah.
And what I did at the open house, we didn't have databases. We didn't have an Apple, iPad back then. So everybody actually still had to sign in with pen and paper. But what I did is when somebody came into my open house, it was, I wanted it to feel like they were coming into an Amman experience from the perspective of hospitality. I was well dressed. The house smelled good. Everything was open. It was airy. We were kind of the first ones to create that, that opportunity. But what I did is I would actually interface with the people in a very nice way, not by asking them in a very elegant way, not by asking them, hey, what are you looking for? But rather like questions as they came in. Oh, you have your family. This is so nice. Do you live in the neighborhood? No, I'm here looking. Do not direct used car salesman questions, but rather questions that allowed me to get insight into their lifestyle, what they were doing. Their kids are going to school. They're moving here from another neighborhood. They're moving here from another state. They're getting divorced. Like, just start understanding the lifestyle of what was happening. And then, ask their name. I never forgot a name. So as the person would walk around, I would say, hey, Joe, hey, Jose, hey, Maria, hey, this, or whatever. And then I would be able to talk to them and ask another question. As they left, I asked them what they thought about the house. Did it fit? What did it look like? And then when they would leave, if it didn't fit or it was too expensive or for whatever reason, I have the best knowledge of real estate properties in my head memorized. Okay.
Yeah.
Which again is the NLS.com, it's the inventory, et cetera, et cetera. And when you can say to somebody, well, if this house doesn't fit you and it doesn't fit you because you don't like the way the family room or the layout or the this or whatever reason they have, but you can name 1, 2, or 3 homes that fit them, sometimes off market, sometimes on market, and give them that expertise. Now you become a matchmaker. And when you become a matchmaker and you have something that they don't have, which is knowledge of inventory, right? Because they're out just looking and they have knowledge and you understand that. And all of a sudden they start wondering, well, wait a minute, like, how does this guy know exactly what I want? Right now you become a matchmaker and now you start selling. So the bigger the inventory list that you have in your head, and I used to have it on an Excel spreadsheet, and the larger the database that you have on your buyers or sellers, and I used to have all that on an Excel, I still do. And all you do is I would sit down every single morning and I would just look at my, also, if I thought that was a good deal in real estate, I would just put it down on my note, like, not my listing, not anything. Like, dude, that house is cheap, or that property is amazing, or like this house is something that I could sell. I would just have it on my low-hanging fruit to-do list, right? And then as soon as I found the buyer at a bar, at an open house, at whatever, or it was on my list, you just start matchmaking them, right? So every morning I'm just matchmaking, and trying to figure out, how to find somebody. And when you become that matchmaker, you start selling beautifully. But it takes years to create it.
Of course, and I love that answer. And it actually leaves me. I'm going a little bit off piece. This isn't the chat GPT, this is me personally actually wanting to know. Your little black book might be the most, significant little black book that exists. How did you grow? Like, what were the things that you did that enabled you to create this incredible sphere of network? Which, if people don't know, like, if Mo doesn't know him, he knows someone who does. Anybody, and that's just a fact. So, how did you do that?
Yeah, I have a pretty incredible black book. I think I have about 6,000 people on my database that have a net worth of north of $100 million, which is pretty
Yeah.
impressive. And then you start matchmaking, you start building it, all of that stuff. But in order to do stuff like that, you have to become a trusted advisor.
Yeah.
You've got to have all the knowledge. I mean, as I go back to knowledge, whether it's knowledge of the inventory, knowledge of the contracts, knowledge of the law. I mean, I memorized, the entire purchase agreement. I could tell you what, 17A B2, clause says, in 2 seconds. I could tell you what 3A1 says in 2 seconds. And when somebody is at a bar or somewhere and they want to have a conversation or a question, and you are the most knowledgeable person in the room without question, and you can tell attorneys, teach them what they think they know and they actually don't know. Okay. Or
Amazing.
you can tell, experts, then you start gaining respect. But in terms of building the black book, it's all about putting yourself in places that, and being approachable, humility, humble. I think that's what people don't understand. It's like, everybody wants to meet, somebody. And if you have humility, if you're humble, if you're respectful, if you're, approachable, they want to hang out with you. They want to get to know you. And then, once you get to know 3 or 4 of these ultra holy net worth individuals and you can gain their trust, they start introducing you to their friends. And all of a sudden you have, 10 individuals. And then, from the 10, they introduce you, and all of a sudden you have 20, and then the 20 introduce you, and then you have 60, right? And so and then then you start being successful. And then all of a sudden, you're renting your own yacht. You're no longer a guest, and you're out in Sardinia and you're shaking hands and you're, talking to people. And now you go from 60 to 120, right? And you just start, and that's why I'd say it takes 15 years. It takes, this is not an overnight game. The more expensive homes you sit open houses, the more wealthy people you're going to meet, right? I mean, again, as you know, I think I have the accolade, or I've self-proclaimed the accolade of selling more homes in the world of, than any other person above $20 million.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not, but nobody has ever come and challenged me and said that no, they've sold more. So we're sticking with it.
Love it. Proximity is power, right? That's it. It's like, be around the people
Wow.
who can change your life. We're going to change lanes and go to the business side now, because actually that actually covered a lot of the questions that I was going to ask in terms of what sets you apart and etc. So transitioning to the business builder, what did you realize you weren't just building it? Sorry, when did you realize you weren't just building a career, but building a business? And how did that change your approach?
Well, I think from the beginning,
Yeah,
whether even I was looking at myself as just an agent before I was actually looking at myself as a business, I was building a business as an agent.
yeah,
I never
yeah,
looked at building, a career. I was always building a business, and that's what gave me that longevity. That's what gave me that power to always look forward. I mean, I remember again very distinctly when I sold the Playboy Mansion, and it was a very large commission, as you can imagine. And I walked into the office the next day, and like 4 or 5 of my agents walked up to me and said, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "You should celebrate it. You should go on a trip." I'm like, "That deal's over. Let's go find the next deal." Right? Like
yeah,
so we're only as good as our last deal, right? And so if you don't have that pipeline and if you don't have that discipline, that you can continue to go forward. Building that pipeline and that discipline is everything. Because the life cycle of selling a property, it takes a minute, right? And
yeah,
we as salespeople, we're incredible people because we work and we rely on our own fishing skills, on our own hunting skills. We don't rely on somebody giving us a paycheck. We rely on what we can do. We survive out of what we can do. So if we stop building that, if we start looking at ourselves as a business, and how do you continue that going, and you stop looking at yourself as a career or a salesperson, it becomes a big difference between how much money you're going to make. You're going to go from making 100K a year to making 500K a year. You're going to go from making 500K a year to making 1 million a year, right? Once you hit 1 million a year, that's a good number. I think that's the number where you start becoming you know, an important, person, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You get into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 million a year. That's a really nice, and the interesting thing about this job, and what that I love about this job, is that it is a job that you can hit, north of 1 million a year, and you can do that without a very large investment. Most businesses, in order to make north of 1 million a year, require a large investment.
Yeah.
Real estate brokerage, because you're in sales and you're relying on yourself, does not require a large investment, but it does require a large investment in time, in discipline, in knowledge, and putting in the hard work. That's your investment. But it does not require a large investment in terms of dollars actually put out. It's the only business that I know that you can make this much money without putting out a ton of money.
It's a great point. Love that. And so then let's talk about what you've done at the agency, because that's really astonishing as well. So what did you do differently to create something that could scale beyond the local market? Like what were your keys to success with that company?
Yeah, great question. I think we were the first, we approached, when we started the agency, it was 2011. And in 2011, there was a lot of changes happening. And I see a question here about AI. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But in 2011, there was a lot of changes happening. There was a lot of changes in technology. Prop tech was kind of something that was coming into the real estate industry. The real estate industry in the brokerage world was kind of the last big business industry to adopt innovation, change, tech, all of these different things. And in that 2011, 2012 era, that's when the real estate industry in the US, and I know the rest of the world kind of followed, started to adopt, the prop tech, different changes, et cetera, et cetera. We approached our difference really from a lifestyle and marketing perspective, as well as some technology. But what we did, and I'm a salesperson first, so I always approached it from sales marketing before I approached it from tech, right? And so what we did is we were the ones that started the big, collaboration and sponsorship with, lifestyle marketing, event marketing, right? So I was doing, 500 people open house parties at, $25 million estates together with Lamborghini and Tiffany and inviting our best clients, their best clients, and throwing a party where people were, joining forces and were being together. Keep in mind, this was also at the end of the 2007, 2008 banking crisis that occurred globally, which created in Europe, tons of, headaches. Greenland, Iceland, banks of London, Spain, everywhere was losing tons of money. And as we were coming out of 2011, 2012, this was kind of the beginning of, the resurgence. And right now we're kind of in that low again. And I think we're going to be coming out of that low. So I think today agents should really be thinking about setting themselves up for success, because I think we're going to be hitting another moment. We've had the COVID moment that we went, which was incredible. Then we went into a low market, and now I think that we're very close to start coming back. We've been in the low market now for 3.5 years, and I think we're very close to start coming back out of it in a global scale. And obviously, guys, there's micro economies everywhere. So I cannot talk about your micro. I have to talk about this in the general consensus. But marketing approach, lifestyle, videos. We started, we're the ones that started selling property based on the lifestyle that you were living in, it not based on 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and merely appliances. We didn't describe it. We described how you lived around the property, what parks you were going to, what the lifestyle felt like, what the spas were around, lifestyle, event marketing. And we really created, these amazing videos, and it was the beginning of social media and Instagram. And, we were the ones that created all of this, which has now been copied. But that was the way that we started the company. And copying is great. I have no problem with that, because that's, the best form of flattery. I remember some of our biggest competitors, in the US growing their business, I would be backstage about to come on stage and talk about what we were doing. And, the CEOs of the other competitors that were going to come on stage with me would say, "Hey, Mauricio, what you guys are doing is amazing. And we just copy all your shit." So at least they would tell me that straight up instead of copy and then not tell me. So I appreciate that.
I love it. Well, on that point, how do you think agents, if you're like, again, going back a little bit, but when you're up for like an open house, when you're competing for a listing, and you've got, obviously, what are the things that you think? Are there any things, maybe nuggets there, in terms of how you can differentiate yourself, etc., and to win those listings? What are the things that agents should be focusing on for that?
Look, you always just have to find yourself. And I think that if you can create your authentic self and who you are, you're going to attract people. Okay. Polarizing people becomes, people today, with Instagram, with social media, with everything that's going on, they can really, find and smell when somebody is pretending to be something they're not. Being yourself, being your true self, and being authentic to yourself, you're going to attract your own group of people. You don't need to be great to everybody. In order to be great, you have to dare to be bad. Okay. If you're great to everybody, you're vanilla. You're whatever. You're just like, you're okay. You're not great. There's no such thing as great. If you're just vanilla. Okay. You have to be, if you're gonna be authentic to yourself, there's gonna be a group of people that have no interest in being with you. But the people that do want to be with you, that rely on you because of your knowledge, because of who you are, they're going to be so tight with you that they're going to introduce you to more friends and bigger friends and all of that different things, right? So allow yourself to understand your voice. Tell your voice through, if you're marketing yourself through social media, if you're marketing yourself through videos, through YouTube, through whatever it is that today that you're marketing yourself, allow yourself, find your voice, be you, and allow
Yeah.
yourself to and allow the people that are attracted to you to come to you. Don't try to be something for everybody. I think that's critical, and I think that's how you're going to attract somebody. I learned that recently, more than ever before, and it was a very important moment in my life. So I think that that's a critical piece. And again, Chris, we're approaching 8:30. There's or 30 minutes after the hour, and there's a bunch of questions, and that's another webinar that we could go deep into that one. Authenticity, being true to yourself, all of that stuff. But that's a whole nother hour. I just did a TED talk on that. If you guys want to see that, it'll be out. It's not out yet. It'll be out in about 2 weeks. But I just did a TED talk on authenticity and on being true to yourself, and it was a great, great TED talk. So I'm excited for that to be out in the universe of the TED world in about 2 weeks.
Amazing. We will get that out to everybody. Well, we can turn this to, we've actually covered a lot there in terms of like what I wanted to ask. We can turn it to the attendees here to ask any questions. So there was one on AI there, Mo. Did you see that?
Yeah, the question is, from your perspective, how are AI and automation reshaping high-end real estate marketing over the next 2 to 3 years? And what practical use cases are already delivering results for you today? This is a great question, guys. And here's how I feel about AI. Funny enough, this is so funny. Last night I went to dinner by myself. And I'm training right now. I'm training for some really cool stuff. So I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life. And I wanted just to get some really good meal. And I just went to a bar, sat at the bar by myself, and I wanted to get a good meal. I had trained so hard last night. I had just nothing going on. And I sat next to this young woman, 28 years old, and probably one of the most important AI specialists in the world right now, advisors and consultants at a complete, and we ended up having an hour and a half conversation on AI. And right now, the agency is redoing our entire tech stack to really incorporate AI. So I have a little bit of an understanding, in terms of technical AI, and I use it a lot. But here's what I have to say. I'll tell you some cases of how I use it. But here's what I have to say high level about AI. AI is there to make you the most efficient person on the planet. It is not there to replace you. If you are a person that is going to not incorporate AI into your daily life, you will be left behind and you will not be a successful real estate agent in the future, no matter what. You have to incorporate AI in order to be able to compete into your life, in order to be able to stay competitive with your colleagues and your competitors, because they are going to be incorporated. And the youth, the new people coming up, this is going to be innate to them. And if you start learning and practicing how to use AI in 2 years or in 3 years, you're going to be way behind, right? If you started Instagram the day it started, you probably have, and even if you were not on television or you were not on this, and I see that question, you're probably going to have a lot more followers than if you fought social media and Instagram and didn't incorporate it into your marketing campaign until 5 years after it was already existence. Okay. Early adoption is critical. How do I use AI? I use AI to help me communicate with my clients, to help me read my inbox and tell me what, what emails I need to get to fast, to help me create spreadsheets that used to take me an hour. I'm now creating them in 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Once you start learning how to use these things, it becomes super easy. To help me plan my day, I talk to my robot just to think about, different ways, different perspectives. Keep in mind, your robot is not meant to replace you. But the more you talk to it, the more it's going to understand you. But I talk to my robot to think about different perspectives of how I can be doing things different, how I can be more efficient. Sometimes I like the advice they give me, sometimes I don't. I talk to my robot about, and I ask it about how I can be more efficient on prospecting. Give me ideas on prospecting, finding clients. I use AI right now in terms of finding material to talk to on webinars or on. And again, I don't want the robot to talk about my experiences, but what's happening in the world. What are the headlines? What should I be looking at? Keep in mind your robot can read an entire global headline of absolutely everything happening in real estate in every city in the world in 5 seconds, and that would take you, 50 days, right? Whatever. So incorporate it into your daily world. Critical. All
Love
right, let's
that.
get more questions here.
Yeah. It's
Talking about 2011, here's a good question. Sorry, I'm going to jump into it, Chris. Talking about 2011, I've known Bravo TV. Do you think one can build such a strong brand without television exposure, or is it just a must now to become a household name? Great question. I actually was sought out. Kyle and I were sought out to be on the Real Housewives of TV on 2011. And we got onto television after I had already done my $653 million year. I became a house team and built my name. I think it was 2008 or 2009 when I had my that year. And by the way, I was still selling $500 million, since then. I became successful and built the career that we're talking about off of television. Television came to us because of that success. It was not the other way around. So the answer is 100% you can build without being on television. Obviously, since then, I've now done, Buying Beverly Hills on Netflix, which I hope you guys all watch. It's some great moments to learn from. It's on Netflix, Buying Beverly Hills. There's great teaching lessons on real estate and how to sell and all that stuff, and it's entertaining. I think Dyson, Chris, you were on 1 or 2 episodes of that as a guest star, weren't you?
or two. Yeah. Yeah. Get my ugly mug. It was wonderful. It was I think that show out of all the shows was the closest to what we do. Right. I think that was one of the most, the realist depiction of, there wasn't the bubblegum with that one. There was obviously bits, but that was, I think, the most authentic representation of what the job looks like.
Oliver is asking, I like this question, and then I can go back to other ones. You want to read this one for Oliver?
Sure.
Chris, or you want me?
I'll go. Where are your highest quality leads actually coming from right now? What is your cost per closed lead? How do you deal with agent burnout from too many phone calls to people that are not interested in purchasing straight away? What type of buyers are dominating right now nationally? What separates this top closer from the rest?
Yeah, I think nationally you're starting to see some movement again. I mean, obviously the war either put a pause, the war in the Middle East either put a pause in the real estate world, or it actually is moving people. I've seen people from Dubai moving everywhere, moving to Spain, moving to LA, moving to New York, moving to Miami. I've seen some movement going on there. I think we're going to continue to see some movement going on there. So I think being an international broker is super important, in order to get leads. But I think that again, leads for me, the least expensive way of getting leads is sitting open houses. Um, it's time, and
Yeah.
you put yourself out there in front of people, and you're the most knowledgeable person. Somebody wrote, here, knowledge is key. Knowledge is key. I will, if you read my book, that I wrote, if you look at anything I ever talk about, it all starts with knowledge. Period. End of story. Like it is all knowledge. If you don't have that, and you're not the most knowledgeable person in the world, I'll tell you a story on that, and then I'll go back to the lead. Well, I guess I kind of talked about the leads. There's definitely a bunch of stuff that you can do today, and to capture some leads and buy some leads and all of that stuff. I find that a lot of that, as you said in your question, you end up just cold calling, and you're talking to people that you're wasting your day and wasting your time. To me, the open houses, even if you have just a looky-loo that's curious, they're still curious about real estate. That's why they walked into the open house. So if you stay in touch with them for a year, 2 years, 3 years, eventually they're going to become a buyer, right? Because they're curious. They don't just walk around open houses if they don't like real estate, right? Even if they're not a buyer today. So some of those leads that you're going to capture are for immediate. Some of those years that you're going to capture are for 2 or 3 years from now, but they're still your lead, right? Particularly in some of the areas that you guys are all calling from, which are some vacation spots, or it's not necessarily year-round living. And you've got somebody that's coming in from Germany, or somebody that's coming in. Well, they're going to come back every single summer, right? And eventually they're going to buy. I mean, I know that when I bought my house in Aspen, Colorado, I went there 3 or 4 or 5 times, before, as a vacation, or before I bought my house, and I would walk into the open houses, and I would walk into these different things, and I wasn't a buyer until I was, right?
Yeah.
So I forgot the story I was going to tell. Oh, knowledge. Knowledge. I'm going to tell this story. Great story. One of the founders of Facebook, um, tech guy, super knowledgeable, nerdy, knew absolutely everything. Like, could not, like, he was just a computer genius. He was AI before there was AI. Okay. And I always said I was the most knowledgeable person. And I kind of slacked. Okay. And I showed him a house, and he started quizzing me on the neighborhood, and what has sold, and what was price per foot, and just all these different things. And I was close, but I wasn't exact. I remember perfectly. He goes, "What's the last two sales?" And I went like, 9312 Nightingale, and 9300 Flickr. And he goes, "Well, what about 1423 Oriole, and what about this?" And I was like, "Oh my God!" Like, I was not on, right? I'm like, this guy knows. He goes, "Well, what are these things selling at?" And well, that sold at 1400 a foot. He goes, "No, it sold at 1368." And like and he just made me feel like, I didn't know what I was talking about, right? And he was challenging me. And I left there thinking to myself, "Oh my God, I've always considered myself to be so on top of my game, so knowledgeable, where, again, if I had a conversation in the past prior to that with somebody, I was the one saying, no, it was 1367 a foot, not 1368 a foot. It was X, it was Y." And I found myself on the other side where I was not 100% prepared. Then I had an opportunity to show him another house. He called up on another one of my listings, and I knew who was coming now. And now I was prepared. And now he started challenging me again. And now we went head to head. We ended up becoming really great friends. I ended up selling him lots of property. I ended up with some Facebook stock before it became public. But it was that knowledge, okay, And that willingness to know, that is what allowed us to become friends. And today we are still great friends. And that's how you build your list of 6,000 ultra high net worth individuals.
Boom. Love that. There's a few more here. What's a belief you had about real estate 10 years ago that you no longer agree with? That's a good question.
Ah, real estate's changing a lot. Again, with AI and with the changes and everything, it's becoming a little bit more difficult for us as real estate agents to stand out. Before, again, this idea of knowledge and being able to spit it out really made you unique. Today, it is available for a lot of people, really quickly. But if you're one of those that have to look at your phone or have to ask that question, it's not really great. You know, Trends, being on top of trends, I think is important to really understanding, what's, where the money, the ultra high net worth individuals are moving, where they're immigrating from, where they're going from. I think having that understanding is important. But I'm not sure I'm trying to think out loud. I'm not sure what belief I had 10 years ago that I think it's different, but it's changing a lot. Being on top of what, the interior design, the new today, longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Longevity, probably one of the most important things happening in real estate, hospitality, home, creating moments and sanctuaries, for the client. I think that pre-COVID, everybody wanted, the big open space, the big room, the great room, that I've seen even a lot in Spain now. I've seen it everywhere in the world. Post-COVID, people started to realize that they want, some privacy in some spaces that you can't be together everywhere. But the new idea of longevity is a great trend. Sustainability, longevity, is really important.
Mo, do you want to look through some of these, see which ones?
Yeah. What is the most unusual or challenging deal you've ever closed, and what did it teach you? That's a great question. I like to learn from my challenges and my failures sometimes more than I like to learn from my successes. And the challenges and the failures, where you lose something. I lost a listing. I didn't take care of something. I should have had it. Yeah, because and if you look at it, your failures usually occur because you weren't on top of your game. And if you can stop blaming others for your failures and start understanding, not every single time it's like this, right? But I would say 90% of the time, what I'm about to say is true. Okay. If most of us blame others for our failures, it's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's, we lost the listing, I lost the client. The client was mine and somebody else sold the client, sold him a house. I had him, they stole him. I had this listing and then somebody else ended up with it. And most of us, we naturally blame our client for that happening, right? Oh, what an asshole, he gave it to somebody else, or what an asshole, he went with another agent. Stop looking at that and start looking at yourself. What did you not do that allowed that person to go somewhere else? Did you not make the call? Were you not on top of it? Did you decide to go surfing? Did you decide to go skiing instead of doing something else? It's usually our fault. And if we use that as our own driver to make sure that we're successful in the future and not allow that to happen, you're going to be successful. So learning from those failures and blaming yourself. And by the way, sometimes you choose to go skiing and you're going to lose a deal. I do that all the time. Okay. But I, but be aware that you might lose the deal. Okay. Don't think the guy's an asshole. It's you. You chose to do something for yourself. Okay. To not take care of a client. That's also the most difficult thing about our business. We are only as good as our last deal. We are only as good as the call we make. We are only as good as the work that we're putting into our business today for tomorrow, right? And so everything has a consequence. So when I look at my failures and my challenges, And when I lose, it usually has to do with me, not with somebody else.
I love that. Be accountable. And
Albie is a business owner. I know Albie. Hi, Albie. How are you? Let's talk to you. I don't even know what you're about to ask, but I love you, brother. As a business owner, as a business owner, you know how you will handle a client follow-up and being on top of things. When running a business or a team, whoa, I just lost it. There you go. When running a business or a team, how do you ensure they are really on top of their game? That is a good question. There's a lot of programs right now that you can, and we do that. We have, I just caught a fly.
Miyagi.
Miyagi, Mr. Miyagi. Yeah. There's a lot of programs out there right now that you can create the follow-up, follow-up boss, all kinds of different CRMs. At the agency, we're just putting in something called Real Chat that we're rolling out today, yesterday. And we're very excited about it. But your team should be logging every single phone call, every follow-up, everything into one thing so that everybody on the team can be communicated. That idea of collaboration, that idea of transparency, of complete openness is what allows a team to work super hard. Having that discipline that everybody actually does that, and if your teammates are not
Oh, we lost you, Mo. Mo. You've muted. Oh, you've muted. How's that happened? You got it? I don't know what happened there. Yeah, it's gone.
Hello.
Yep, we're back.
Okay, good. So every team is only as good as their weakest link. And again, I don't know where I got cut off, but there's tons of programs out there that the entire team should be putting the CRMs, follow-up calls made. Everybody on the team should know what's been, the point of contact, who's following up, where it's following up, what properties they've seen. The more transparency and the more collaboration you have amongst the team, the better off you can be. And again, as I said, our teams are only as good as our weakest link. So let's not have any weak links.
Love that. I think Elaine Young's got a good question here. How do you handle a seller when they're convinced their property is worth a lot more than it actually is? It's universal.
I don't think I've ever met a seller that's not like that. Not one in my entire life have I met one seller that's not like that. There is no one way of handling a seller that is like that. I think that, again, the key to us being great salespeople is to be able to read a room and to be able to read the vibe of a client and adapt our communication skills to whatever it is that client is. At the end of the day, there's some clients that through, again, data, through knowledge, you're going to show them because, and again, the NLS.com hopefully will start giving you guys in Spain that data. In LA, in the US, we're very lucky to have MLSs where we have all of that data. And we could actually say to the client, listen, here's all your competitive, all of your comparative properties. Here's what they sold for. Here's what they looked like. Having a knowledge of every single one of those. I mean, today you guys all have that in your own little databases. But if you have this universally, everybody becomes better. It's just a way better technique. Data is critical to teaching these people. But again, and then it's psychology because their house is always better than the next door neighbor's house. Every owner's house is better than the next door neighbor's house. Everyone. There's just a period, end of story. So, allowing the market to speak, allowing, people, and then it's a psychology game. That's what makes our job so difficult, is having that ability to communicate and that psychology and the patience to deal with some of these clients, buyers, sellers. Buyers want to buy low, sellers want to sell high. And that's where we come in, and that's where our skills come in, and that's why we will continue to exist.
Love that. We probably got the chance for maybe one more. What do European developers or agents do better or worse than in the US?
I don't know that answer, so I'm not going to even attempt to make that one. I saw that. We constantly choose a boutique model to stay close to our clients and protect consistency in service. Looking at Eurex building a global brand, do you think scaling always comes at the expense of the level of personalization? No, I think that you can scale and be boutique. I think that particularly in today, with technology, with communication, with transparency, with vulnerability, with authenticity, that you can talk to your entire team and still be global and still be boutique. There is a point where you get too big. At the agency, that's kind of what we're building. We're building a global brand that is a boutique brand with global reach is the way we say it. Most of our offices are not huge. Most of our offices are 20, 30 agents, at most, 40 sometimes, 100, nearly 160 offices around the world right now. But we're putting in new technology so that we can all chat, we can all talk, we have all different spaces, we all get together. Again, my communication to the team is critical in terms of having, open communication, transparency communication, and creating a culture where everybody can, be operating and working together and realize that together you are way stronger than separately and individually. But that creates a culture that creates it requires a very specific need of people to buy into that. But it can definitely be done. It's hard. It's not easy, but it can be done. All right, my man. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed this. And I enjoyed being with you, Chris, and being with everybody. And I cannot wait to be in Spain. And if you see me at a bar, buy me a beer. And I'd love to have a drink and a beer with you all. And see you all very, very soon. And I can't wait to do this again.
Mo, I can't thank you enough for your time today. That's been amazing. A real treat.
Thank you, sir.
All right, pal. I will see you very soon. Thank you again. Bye, guys.